A father at the edge. When one night changed everything. He worked 3 jobs to keep his little girl fed. He hadn't slept more than 4 hours in a week. And on the worst night of his life, a billionaire grabbed a waitress by the wrist in a roadside diner, and Ethan Cole made a decision that would cost him everything he had left. Within 48 hours, the internet would brand him a monster. His daughter would watch strangers spit at their car. And the only person who knew the truth was a young woman hiding a secret that could burn an empire to the ground. Stay with me until the end of this story. Hit that like button and drop the name of the city you're watching from in the comments so I can see how far this story has traveled. The fluorescent light above pump 4 had been flickering for 11 days, and Ethan Cole had counted every one of them. He stood under it now at 2:17 in the morning, the pistol grip of the gas nozzle cold against his palm, watching a sedan idle on the far end of the lot while its driver argued into a phone. The wind off the interstate smelled like diesel and wet asphalt. Somewhere behind the station, a trash bag had torn open, and Ethan kept meaning to go deal with it, and kept not going. His back hurt. His feet hurt worse. The steel-toe boots were a size too small because the right size cost $40 more, and $40 was groceries for a week if he stretched it, which he could, because stretching was the one skill life had actually taught him. He glanced at his watch. 2:19. He'd clocked in at the station at 10. Before that, he'd worked a 7-hour shift unloading freight at the warehouse off Culver Road, and before that, he'd driven 12 deliveries for a courier app between 8 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon. At 6 tomorrow, he had to be back at the warehouse. Mia had school at 8. Mrs. Alvarez across the hall would get her breakfast and walk her down to the bus stop, the way she did 3 mornings a week, and Ethan would pay her what he could on Friday, which wasn't enough, which she would accept anyway because she was kinder than the world deserved. The sedan driver got out, slammed his door, and stalked toward the convenience booth. Ethan turned his head and watched him pass without making eye contact. The man was drunk. You could tell from 20 feet. Not stumbling drunk, not yet. The dangerous kind. The kind that still thinks he can drive. "Hey," Ethan said before he'd decided to. The man turned. He was maybe 40, soft around the middle, wearing a shirt that had probably been white at the start of the evening. "You okay to drive, friend?" The man blinked at him. "What did you say to me?" "I asked if you were okay to drive." "I'm fine." "I can call you a car. There's no charge. We've got a deal with the service." There wasn't a deal. Ethan would pay for it himself if he had to, which he couldn't afford, which he would do anyway. The man took a step closer. "You calling me a drunk?" "I'm asking if you want a ride." "I'm asking if you're calling me a drunk." Ethan let out a long breath through his nose. He'd done this dance 1,000 times. Night shift at a gas station on a state highway meant drunks, meant tweakers, meant lost truckers and crying teenagers and old men who came in just to have someone to talk to at 3 in the morning because their wives had been dead for 11 years and the silence at home was worse than the cold. "I'm asking if you want a ride," Ethan said again, even and quiet. "That's all I'm asking." The man stared at him. Then, to Ethan's mild surprise, he sagged. The fight went out of his shoulders like air out of a tire. He mumbled something that might have been an apology, might have been a curse, walked into the booth, and bought a coffee and a bag of chips from Rafa, who rang him up without a word. Ethan called the ride service anyway. The man got in the back seat 10 minutes later without looking at him. Rafa came out afterward, leaning against the doorframe with his vape between 2 fingers. Rafa was 19, skinny as fence wire, and had been working the register at this station for 9 months, which made him a veteran. "You didn't have to pay for that," Rafa said. "He was going to kill somebody." "Not your problem." "It was, though." Rafa exhaled a cloud of something that smelled like cotton candy. "You're a weird dude, Cole. I've been told." "Seriously, normal person doesn't pay $30 out of pocket to keep a stranger from dying." "Then maybe normal people should." Rafa laughed, which turned into a cough. "Yeah, maybe." He flicked ash onto the concrete. "Hey, the diner's still open?" "Till 3. You going?" Ethan rolled his shoulders. The muscle across his upper back had gone tight somewhere around the 8th freight pallet of the afternoon, and it hadn't let go since. Thinking about it, "Get me one of those apple things, the crumb ones." "You don't pay me. I'm paying you in friendship." "I don't need friends. I need $20. Rafa laughed again and went back inside. Ethan clocked out at 2:40. The night manager, a woman named Dee, who worked days at a hospital and nights at the station and slept, as far as anyone could tell, approximately never, waved at him without looking up from her clipboard. "You look like hell," she said. "You always say that. You always look like hell." "Night, Dee." "Night, Cole. Tell Mia I said hi." He walked across the parking lot to the truck. The truck was a 2003 Ford that had been red a long time ago and was now the color of something that had lost an argument with the sun. It started on the second try, which was better than usual. He let it warm up, sitting with his hands on the wheel and his forehead almost against it, just for a second. He could go home. He could go home and sleep for 2 hours and 40 minutes before his alarm, and his back would still hurt, and his feet would still hurt, and he would get up and do it again, because that was the job, the only job that mattered, the one that paid nothing and demanded everything. Mia was 6. She had Ethan's eyes and her mother's laugh, and her mother had been gone for 4 years and 10 months and 19 days. And Ethan was never going to remarry, and he was never going to date, and he was never going to do anything in this life that wasn't, in some way, for that little girl. He sat with the heater pushing lukewarm air against his knees. Then he pulled out onto the highway and drove the 2 miles to the diner. The Blue Heron sat alone at the end of a service road off the interstate, the kind of diner that had survived 3 recessions by refusing to change anything about itself. The booths were red vinyl, patched in places with duct tape. The coffee was bad. The pie was miraculous. The sign out front had lost half its neon in 2019 and now just read Blue He, which the regulars had made into a joke that stopped being funny years ago and had come back around to being funny again. Ethan pushed through the door. The bell above it rang, a small, tired sound. The waitress at the counter looked up. She was new. He noticed that first because he noticed everything at this hour. It was a habit he'd never unlearned. She was maybe 24, maybe 25, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail that had started the shift neat and was now giving up at the edges. She wore the standard blue apron over a black t-shirt and jeans. A pencil was tucked behind her left ear. She was holding a coffee pot in one hand and a ticket pad in the other, and she was looking at Ethan the way people look at things they're trying to figure out. "Sit anywhere," she said. Her voice was lower than he expected. Calm. Not the tired calm of someone at the end of a double. Something else. Like she'd decided long before tonight that nothing in a roadside diner at 2:45 in the morning was going to rattle her. He took the booth by the window. She came over with a mug in the pot. "Coffee? Please." She poured. Her hand was steady. He noticed that too. Most of the waitresses who worked the graveyard at the Heron had at least a small tremor by this hour. Caffeine, sugar, fatigue, life. "Menu? Just apple crumb if you've got it. 2 slices, 1 to go. Vanilla on the warm one? Please." She wrote it down and didn't move. He looked up. "You're Cole, right?" she said. "Yeah. Shelley told me about you, said you come in sometimes at the end of your shift, said to make sure you got the crumb, because the guy who buys the last slice is an animal." Ethan almost smiled. Shelley's generous. Is she wrong? She's protective. That's a yes, then. This time he did smile, a small one, the kind that didn't reach his eyes but was still more than he'd given anyone in days. "What's your name?" "Chloe." "Chloe. Just Chloe. Like Madonna, except less famous, and not singing." He let out a breath through his nose that was almost a laugh. "You're new." "First week?" "You from here?" "Passing through." He waited for more. It didn't come. She tucked the pad into her apron and walked back to the counter with the pot, and he watched her go not because he was looking, but because there wasn't anything else to look at. And something about her bothered him in a way he couldn't name. Her posture was wrong. That was it. That was the thing. She carried herself like somebody who had never had to make herself small in her life. And every other waitress he'd ever met at 2:45 in the morning on a state highway had learned to make herself small by the time she was 17. He filed it away. It wasn't his business. The pie came. It was perfect. He ate it slowly, with the fork in his right hand and his phone in his left, scrolling through the email from Mia's school about the field trip he couldn't afford. $32 for the bus and the entry fee. There was a scholarship form at the bottom. He'd fill it out tomorrow. He'd fill it out tonight, probably, because tomorrow was going to be another day that ate him alive. The bell above the door rang. Ethan looked up. 3 men came in. 2 of them in their late 20s, one older, maybe 40, all of them in clothes that cost more than Ethan's truck. The older man was the one who walked like he owned the air. Slicked hair, black jacket, watch that caught the overhead light in a way cheap watches never do. He was laughing at something one of the other men had said. A big, loose laugh, the kind that told you exactly how drunk he was before he'd even opened his mouth. They took the booth 2 down from Ethan's. Chloe walked over with menus. Gentlemen? Gentlemen, the older one said, drawing it out. You hear that, boys? She thinks we're gentlemen. I'm being polite. You're being cute. I'm being professional. Same thing, sweetheart. Ethan set his fork down. He didn't turn his head. He didn't need to. 32 years of living in the world had taught him what this was. It was a thing that happened in booths 2 down from his at 2:50 in the morning on a Tuesday, and it usually ended with a waitress crying in the bathroom afterward and a tip that was either insultingly small or insultingly large, and nothing else ever happened, because nothing else ever did. He picked the fork back up. Coffee, all around, the older one said, and whatever the special is. 3 of them. And bring me the good bourbon, if this place has any. We don't serve alcohol. Of course you don't. He laughed again. Of course you don't. Just the coffee then. And the specials. And you. Just the food and coffee, sir. She said it the way she'd said everything else. Calm, steady, like a person reading the weather report. Ethan watched her walk back to the counter. She didn't look rattled. She didn't look scared. She looked, if anything, slightly bored, which was a thing he'd never seen on a woman being hit on by a drunk man twice her size at 3 in the morning. It occurred to him, not for the first time that night, that Chloe was not what she appeared to be. He filed that away, too. The food came out. The older man, Ethan caught his name when one of the others said it. Brandon, come on, man. Ate 3 bites and pushed his plate away. This is garbage. I'm sorry to hear that. Don't be sorry. Fix it. I can bring you something else. I don't want something else. I want what I ordered, made right. That's what I brought you, sir. Don't sir me. I hate that. Makes me feel old. He leaned back, one arm along the top of the booth. What's your name again? Chloe. Chloe. Pretty name. Pretty girl. Thank you. Sit down. I'm working. Sit down, Chloe. I'll tip you for your time. What's your hourly? I'll triple it. Quadruple. Sit. I'm working, sir. I told you not to call me sir. The 2 younger men were laughing now, a low, unpleasant laugh that wasn't really at anything. One of them was filming on his phone, held low and casual, the way people film when they want plausible deniability. Ethan saw it. He saw everything. Chloe, the older man said, and his voice had changed. There was a thing under it now, something cold that had been there the whole time, but had decided to show itself. Sit down. I'm asking nicely. I'm going to get your check. She turned. He caught her wrist. Not hard. Not at first. Just a hand around a wrist, the way men had been grabbing women since there had been men and women. A gesture that said, you don't leave until I say you leave. Her pad fell out of her apron and hit the floor. The diner went quiet. There were 6 other people in the Heron at that hour. An old trucker at the counter, a couple in matching hoodies in the back booth, a woman by herself near the jukebox stirring cream into her coffee in slow circles, Shelley behind the counter, the cook, Marco, visible through the pass window, his spatula frozen in his hand. Nobody moved. This was the moment, Ethan thought. This was the moment people always talked about afterward, in the news stories, in the op-eds, in the podcasts. Why didn't anyone do anything? Why did everyone just sit there? And the answer was always the same. And the answer was always a lie. People just sat there because sitting there was what a body did when it didn't know what to do. Because the cost of moving was unknown, and the cost of sitting was 0. At least to you. At least in that second. Ethan looked at Chloe's face. She wasn't scared. She was analyzing. That was the word. She was cataloging the situation the way a person catalogs a problem they've already solved in theory and are now watching play out in practice. Her eyes flicked to the man's grip, to his face, to the door, to the 2 friends, to the phone. and back to the grip. She was fine. She was somehow fine. And that, more than anything, was what got Ethan out of his seat. Because nobody should have to be fine. Not at 3 in the morning, not in a diner on a service road, not with a stranger's hand on her wrist and a camera 6 feet away. He stood up slowly. "Hey!" His voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. The diner had gotten so quiet you could hear the fluorescent lights buzzing and the coffee maker wheezing and the rain, which had started at some point, tapping at the window behind him. The older man looked up. Brandon Vance. Ethan would learn the full name later. In 1,000 places he didn't want to learn it. Brandon Vance, 41, of the Vance Portfolio Group, a name that meant nothing to Ethan right now and was going to mean everything in about 48 hours. Brandon Vance, who had a $3 million home in the hills and a $2 million home on the coast and a lawyer on retainer whose yearly fee was more than Ethan had earned in any 2 years of his life combined. Brandon Vance looked at Ethan the way rich men look at poor men when they're drunk, which is to say, he barely looked at him at all. "Mind your business, Chief." "Let her go." "What?" "Let her go, then I'll mind my business." Brandon laughed. It was a genuine laugh, surprised. He turned to his friends as if to confirm that they had all just heard the funniest thing in the world. "You hear this guy? You hear this? Hey man, just sit down." That was the friend with the phone. He was standing now, slowly, holding up his free hand. Ethan watched the hand. He watched the phone. He watched everything. "Let her go," Ethan said again, still quiet, still not moving. "Or what?" Ethan didn't answer. He didn't need to. He'd been asked that question before, in places where the answer mattered a great deal more than it did tonight, and he'd learned a long time ago that the question only has real weight when you don't answer it. Brandon's hand tightened on Chloe's wrist. She let out a small sound, not a cry, just a breath. And it was that breath that did it, because Ethan had a daughter, and that little exhale was going to live inside him for a very long time either way, and he decided in that instant that it wasn't going to live inside him as a regret. He took 2 steps forward. Brandon let go, not because he wanted to, because Ethan's hand had come down on top of his, and without visible effort, without violence, without anything a phone camera could sell as an assault, Ethan had applied a particular kind of pressure to a particular point on the back of Brandon Vance's hand, and Brandon Vance's hand had opened. It was the kind of thing a Marine learns in the first 4 weeks of close quarters training. Most people go their whole lives without seeing it. When you do see it, it looks like magic. It looks, from the outside, like almost nothing at all. Chloe stepped back, rubbing her wrist. "You okay?" Ethan asked, not looking at her. "I'm okay." "Go to the counter." "Okay." She went. Brandon stared at his own hand like it had betrayed him. Then at Ethan. His face had gone through 3 colors in about 2 seconds and had landed on something that was not quite anger and not quite fear and was definitely humiliation, which was worse than both. "You just made," he said slowly, "a very, very expensive mistake. I asked you to let her go. You let her go. We're done." "We're not done." "We are, though." The 2 friends had stood up. The one with the phone was still filming. The other one was doing the thing men do with their shoulders when they're trying to decide whether they are, in fact, the kind of man who's about to swing at a stranger in a diner. Ethan watched his shoulders. The shoulders were lying. "Sit down," Ethan said to him, not unkindly. The man sat down. Brandon didn't sit. Brandon stood up, slow, wobbling slightly, and pulled his wallet out of his back pocket. He threw a $100 bill onto the table, then another, then another. 3 of them, lying on the wet ring where his water glass had been. "For the food," he said, "and the inconvenience and the trouble I'm about to put this diner through. Enjoy that, sweetheart." He was looking at Chloe now. "Enjoy that while it lasts." He turned to Ethan. "What's your name?" "No. I'm asking your name." "I know what you're asking. The answer is no." Brandon smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the smile of a man who had just remembered that he had, in his pocket, a thing that could burn a stranger's life to the ground, and was looking forward to using it. "Doesn't matter," he said. "I'll find out." He walked out. His friends followed. The one with the phone held it up as he passed Ethan's booth, obvious now, making sure Ethan saw it, and Ethan saw it, and Ethan didn't move. The bell rang above the door. They were gone. The diner was silent for a long moment. Then the old trucker at the counter exhaled. Jesus. Shelley crossed herself. The couple in the back booth started whispering to each other, fast, the way people do when they've just witnessed something and are already constructing the version of it they'll tell at work tomorrow. Ethan walked back to his booth. He sat down. His hands were steady. They were always steady. That wasn't the same as being okay. Chloe came over a minute later without the pot, without the pad. She slid into the seat across from him. They looked at each other. "You shouldn't have done that," she said. "I know." "No, you really shouldn't have." "I know." "Do you know who that was?" "No." "That was Brandon Vance." "Okay." "You don't know that name?" "No." She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, she was looking at him in a new way. Not grateful, not worried. Something more complicated than either. "You should go home," she said. "I'm going. I mean now, tonight. I mean, pack a bag and be somewhere else by morning. I have a 6-year-old daughter and $4 in my checking account until Friday. I'm not going anywhere." She was quiet. "Okay," she said. "I didn't hurt him." "I know you didn't. The phone. His friend. That was a phone." "I know." "It's going to look like I hurt him." "Yes." "Okay." She reached into her apron pocket and pulled out a small, thin object, about the size of a car key fob. She set it on the table between them. "What's that?" "A recorder. You recorded it." "Every word. Both cameras. It's uploading now to a server that isn't mine, and that nobody at his firm has the pull to touch." He looked at the thing, then at her. "Who are you?" he said. She smiled. It was the first real smile he'd seen on her face. It was small and sad and a little bit tired, and it was the smile of a person who had been asked that question before and had never, not once, given a straight answer. "I'm just the waitress." "No." "Chloe, that's all you need to know right now." "Why do you have that?" "Because I needed to know what a man like Brandon Vance does when he thinks no one important is watching." "And?" "Now I know." She picked up the fob and put it back in her apron. He watched her do it. "He's going to come after me," Ethan said. "Yes." "You know that?" "Yes." "And you're going to let him?" "No." She looked at him, and this time her eyes were not calm. This time her eyes were something else, something hard and clean and very, very awake. "I'm not going to let him." "Why?" She didn't answer that one. She stood up. She slid the check across the table face down. When he turned it over, it said on the house in small, square handwriting, "Get home to your daughter, Mr. Cole." "How do you know I have a daughter?" "You said so." "I said a daughter. I didn't say anything else." "You have a car seat in your truck. I saw it when you pulled in." He looked at her. She was already walking away. But he drove home through rain that had gotten heavier without him noticing. The wipers on the Ford were bad. They smeared the water into long arcs across the windshield, and the oncoming headlights bloomed and stretched and broke into long trails of light, and Ethan gripped the wheel and drove 10 miles under the speed limit and tried not to think. He tried not to think about the phone. He tried not to think about Brandon Vance. He tried not to think about the way Chloe had said, "I needed to know what a man like Brandon Vance does when he thinks no one important is watching," because that wasn't how a waitress talked. That wasn't how a person who was passing through talked. That was how a person with a plan talked. A plan that had been running long before Ethan Cole had walked through the door of the Blue Heron and would keep running long after he walked out. He thought about his daughter instead. He thought about the way Mia slept with her mouth open and one arm flung off the side of the bed, and how she'd lost a tooth last Tuesday and had tucked it under her pillow with a note to the tooth fairy that said, "Dear Tooth Fairy, please leave the money. My dad says we don't tip." He'd laughed until he cried when he read it, and then he'd put 4 quarters under her pillow, because that was what he had, and Mia had woken up thrilled, because Mia was 6 and 4 quarters was a fortune. He pulled into the apartment complex at 341. The lot was mostly empty. His neighbor's dog was barking at nothing, the way it barked at nothing every night. A wet, exhausted sound. The streetlight over his space was out. He sat in the truck for a minute, forehead against the wheel, and just breathed. Then he went inside. Mrs. Alvarez had left the kitchen light on. She always did. She said it was so he wouldn't trip on the way in. He stood in the kitchen doorway for a long time and looked at it. Mia was asleep on the pull-out sofa, curled under a blanket that had a unicorn on it and used to be pink and was now mostly gray. Her dark hair was in her face. Her hand was under her cheek. Her feet were sticking out the end of the blanket, and she was wearing one sock, and the other sock was on the floor, inside out. He pulled the blanket up to her shoulders. He pushed the hair out of her face. He stood there for a long time looking at her, and his chest did the thing it had been doing for 6 years now, that tight, full thing that was not quite joy and not quite grief, and was the exact thing nobody ever tells you about being a father. "Hey, Bug," he whispered. She didn't stir. "I did a thing tonight," he said. "I'm going to have to tell you about it eventually, probably tomorrow, probably sooner. I don't know yet." Nothing. Just her breathing, slow and even. "I'm sorry, okay?" He kissed the top of her head. He stood up. He walked to his own room, the closet that had been a room before Mia was born, the room he slept in now so she could have the bedroom. And he sat on the edge of the mattress, and he put his head in his hands. His phone buzzed. He looked at it. Unknown number. "Hope you enjoyed the pie." He stared at the screen. Another buzz. Unknown number. "It's the last thing you'll enjoy for a while." He set the phone face down on the nightstand. He turned off the lamp. He lay down in his clothes because he was too tired to change, and he stared at the ceiling, and he listened to Mia breathing in the next room, and he listened to the rain on the window, and he listened, under all of it, to the small, sharp sound of a wristwatch ticking somewhere inside his own chest, counting down to something he couldn't see yet and couldn't stop. At 4:17 in the morning, a video began uploading to a private server owned by a publicist in Los Angeles. By 6, it would be cut. By 8, it would be posted. By noon, 2.1 million people would have watched a 41-second clip of a man in a gas station uniform grabbing the hand of a well-dressed stranger in a diner. A clip with no sound, no context, no before, no after, just a frozen second of what looked, to anyone who didn't know better, like violence. By the time Ethan Cole woke up, he would no longer have 3 jobs. He would have none. And somewhere across town, in a hotel room that cost more per night than Ethan's rent, a young woman with a pencil behind her ear would sit on the edge of a king-sized bed, plug a small black fob into a laptop, and begin watching a recording that 2 men in the world knew existed. One of them was asleep, with his daughter in the next room. The other did not yet know he should have been afraid. The alarm went off at 5:50, and Ethan Cole was already awake. He'd been awake since 4:42, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain taper off and the first trucks on the interstate grind their way north. He'd thought about getting up a dozen times. He hadn't. There's a kind of tiredness that keeps you flat on your back even when sleep has left the building, and he had that kind now, the kind that sits on your chest like a second body. He turned the alarm off before it could wake Mia. The phone had 2 more messages from the unknown number. He didn't open them. He just saw the preview bars on the lock screen and set the phone face down again, because opening them felt like agreeing to something, and he wasn't agreeing to anything yet. He showered in 3 minutes flat, the way he'd learned to shower in a barracks 10 years ago, and had never unlearned. He put on clean work pants and the last clean shirt in the drawer, a gray one with the warehouse logo faded almost white across the chest. He made Mia's lunch, a peanut butter sandwich on the heels of the bread, because the middle slices were gone and he didn't want to admit it to himself, with 3 baby carrots and half an apple cut into quarters the way she liked it. He wrote "Love you, Bug" on the napkin, because he wrote it every morning, because routine was the only thing in his life that hadn't tried to break him yet. Then he sat down at the kitchen table and opened his phone. The messages were short. Unknown number. Hope you're not doing anything today. Unknown number. Check the internet, Chief. He set the phone down again. He got up and made coffee. He drank it standing at the sink, looking out the window at the parking lot, at the dead streetlight over his space, at a kid from 3 doors down who was learning to ride a bike on the concrete at 6 in the morning because his parents worked the day shift, and this was when they had time. Then he sat back down and opened the phone. He didn't have social media. Not really. He had a Facebook account from 2013 that he'd stopped using when Mia's mother got sick, and a newer account he'd opened for the warehouse job so he could see the schedule posts in the group. And that was it. He opened the newer one. The top post in the group was a screenshot. It was him. It was him with his hand on top of Brandon Vance's hand in the diner, in the exact second before Brandon's grip had opened. The angle was low and to the right, the way it would be if a man sitting in the next booth had held his phone in his lap and pointed it at the table. The caption underneath it read, "In the warehouse group chat, posted by a woman named Rhonda, who ran the pallet jacks on the loading dock and had always been nice to him. Is this Cole from B Shift?" There were 42 comments. Ethan read some of them. He stopped reading some of them. He clicked the link that somebody had posted 5 comments deep. It took him to a clip on one of the big video platforms. The clip was 41 seconds long, had no sound, had a caption across the top in big white block letters that said, "Man attacks stranger in diner over argument." Cops called and had been viewed at 6:04 in the morning 487,000 times. By the time he watched it the second time, it had crossed 500,000. The edit was good. That was the first thing he noticed, in a calm, detached way, the way a tired man notices the shape of a trap the morning after he's already stepped into it. The clip started at the exact moment Ethan had stood up. It skipped the part where Brandon had grabbed Chloe. It skipped her wrist, her flinch, the pad hitting the floor. It skipped the cold little smile and the word sweetheart. It started with Ethan standing, cut to Ethan approaching, cut to his hand coming down on Brandon's, cut to Brandon's face going white with pain, cut to Brandon flinching back and stumbling against the booth. Then it cut to Brandon's friend standing and holding up his hand, which in the edit looked like he was trying to protect Brandon, and ended on a freeze frame of Ethan's face, and in that freeze frame Ethan looked exactly like what he was, which was a very tired man who had not slept enough in 5 years. The caption said he'd broken Brandon's wrist. He hadn't. Brandon's wrist was perfectly fine. A doctor in Beverly Hills would later confirm, without any apparent irony, that Brandon Vance had sustained no injury whatsoever. That confirmation would not trend. That confirmation would not be seen by 487,000 people at 6 in the morning on a Wednesday. Ethan watched the clip a third time. Then he set the phone down, and he sat at the kitchen table, and he put his hands flat on the surface in front of him and stared at them. Down the hall, Mia stirred. "Daddy?" "Hey, Bug. Is it morning?" "Yeah, come eat." She padded into the kitchen in her unicorn pajamas, rubbing her eyes with the back of her hand. She climbed onto the chair across from him and put her chin on the table, and she looked at him with the exact same expression she'd looked at him with every morning for 6 years, which was the expression of a person who trusted him completely and without condition. "Daddy, you look sad." "I'm just tired." "You're always tired." "Yeah, I am." "Mrs. Alvarez said you work too much." "Mrs. Alvarez is right." "Then work less." He almost laughed. He almost cried. He did neither. He pushed a bowl of cereal across the table and said, "Eat your breakfast, Mia." And she ate her breakfast, and he watched her, and he thought about 487,000 people looking at a frozen image of his face. His phone rang at 6:20. It was the warehouse. "Cole." "Derek." Derek was the shift supervisor. Derek was 53, had a bad knee and a worse divorce, and had, over the 18 months Ethan had worked for him, become the closest thing Ethan had to a friend among the men who signed his paychecks. "You see it?" "I saw it." "It's not you." "Some of it's me." "It's not you, Cole. The part where I put my hand on his is me. The rest of it's cut." Derek was quiet for a second. Ethan could hear the warehouse in the background, the forklift beeping, somebody yelling about pallet 17. "Listen, corporate called." "Okay." "At 5:40 in the morning, Cole. Corporate called the warehouse at 5:40 in the morning. You know what corporate does at 5:40 in the morning?" "Nothing." "Nothing. They don't even get out of bed. So somebody called them, and they called me, and the thing they said to me was, 'We are suspending Ethan Cole pending review.' And Derek, I need you to understand that pending review is a word we use when we're firing somebody and we haven't decided yet how much of a lawsuit we're about to get." "Okay." "They haven't decided yet." "Okay, Derek. I'm telling you this because you deserve to hear it from a human being. You've been a good worker. You've been better than good. And I'm telling you, off the record, man to man, you're not going to work here again after today. I'm sorry." Ethan stared at the kitchen wall. There was a crack in the paint above the cabinet that he'd been meaning to fix for 3 years. "I understand. I'm sorry, Cole." "I know. Thanks, Derek." You got anybody? Family? Somebody you can call? I got Mia. Yeah, well, there was nothing else to say. Derek hung up. Ethan set the phone down. Mia was watching him. Was that work? Yeah? Are you going to work? Not today, Bug. Yay! She slid off the chair and ran around the table and hugged him around the middle. He put his hand on top of her head and closed his eyes. Can we go to the park? Not today. Maybe tomorrow. Promise? I'll try, Bug. That's not a promise. No, it's not. She looked up at him, frowning. Are you in trouble? No, sweetheart. Daddy's not in trouble. It was the first real lie he had ever told her. He felt it leave his mouth, and he felt it land in the space between them. And she didn't know it was a lie because she was 6, and because her father had never lied to her. She smiled and went back to her cereal. He sat with his hand on the back of the chair and looked at her, and he thought, I have done something, and I have done it in front of a camera, and now the whole world is going to decide who I am based on 41 seconds. The phone buzzed again. It was the gas station. He didn't bother to answer. By 10 in the morning, he had been fired from 3 jobs. Dee from the gas station called him and cried. Actually cried on the phone. I watched the thing, Cole. I watched the whole thing, and I told them you wouldn't do that. I told them I've known you 2 years, and they said it doesn't matter. They said it's the brand. They said liability. And I said, screw the brand. And they said, Dee, you're the manager. Act like one. And I'm sorry, Cole. I'm so sorry. I'm just so sorry. It's okay, Dee. It's not okay. I know, but it's not your fault. He hung up on her while she was still apologizing, because if he'd let her keep going, he would have started apologizing back. And he didn't have it in him. The Courier app just sent a notification. Your account has been deactivated pending review of recent flagged activity. There was no phone number to call. There was no person to yell at. There was just the notification floating on the screen of his phone like a receipt. He sat on the couch next to Mia, who was watching cartoons, and he counted the money in his wallet. $37 and a bunch of ones. He had $112 in the checking account. He had $48 in the savings, which was the emergency fund, which wasn't actually for emergencies because every month was an emergency. Rent was due in 9 days. Rent was $890. And the landlord, a man named Henry, who was decent but not sentimental, had told Ethan the last time he was late that there wouldn't be a next time. He did the math. He didn't need to. He already knew the answer. His phone rang again. Number he didn't recognize. He almost didn't pick up. He picked up. Is this Ethan Cole? The voice on the other end was male, about his age, crisp and even, the voice of somebody who had to introduce himself on the phone a lot and had gotten good at it. Who's asking? My name's Daniel Okafor. I'm an attorney. I practice in the city. I'd like to talk to you about what happened last night at the Blue Heron. I don't have any money for a lawyer. I'm not asking you for money. Everybody who says that wants money eventually. Mr. Cole, I saw the clip this morning. I also saw the clip before the edit because somebody I trust sent it to me. And I want you to know, before we go any further, that I am not calling you because I think you're a good story. I'm calling you because I think you're about to get destroyed by somebody who has done this before. Ethan was quiet. Done what before? Taken a man's life apart in a week because that man got in the way of his evening. Has he? 3 times I know about. 2 more, I can guess. Mr. Cole, I want 20 minutes of your time. I'll come to you. I'll buy you lunch, if that helps. 20 minutes, and if you don't like what I have to say, I walk away, and I never contact you again. Fair? Ethan looked at Mia. She was laughing at something on the TV. She laughed with her whole body, the way children do before the world teaches them to be embarrassed about laughing. Where'd you get my number? He said. Your number's on the warehouse's subcontractor directory. It's publicly listed. I looked for you for about 15 minutes before I found it. Huh. 20 minutes, Mr. Cole. All right. Where? There's a diner. Which one? The Blue Heron. You want to meet at the diner where it happened. I want to see if the waitress is still there. There was a pause. Then Daniel Okafor laughed, one short, surprised laugh. Mr. Cole, I think you and I are going to get along just fine. At 11:15, Ethan dropped Mia at Mrs. Alvarez's apartment. Mrs. Alvarez had watched the clip. He could tell by the way she looked at him when she opened the door, the way her eyes flickered down and back up, the way her hand tightened slightly on the door frame. Ethan. Hey. You okay? Not really. Come in. I'll make you something. I can't. I got a meeting. You got a meeting? With a lawyer. She let out a breath. She was a small woman, maybe 5'2", with gray hair pulled back in a bun and hands that had been washing other people's dishes for 40 years. She reached up and put her palm against his cheek, the way his mother had done when he was a boy, the way nobody had done since his mother had died when he was 19. Mijo, listen to me. I know what was on that video. I don't care. I know you. 12 years, I know you. You don't lie. You don't steal. You don't hit. I don't believe what they're saying, and anybody who believes it doesn't know you. Thank you. Don't thank me. Go to your meeting. I'll pay you for today. You will not. Mrs. Alvarez, Ethan Cole, you will not. Go. Mia ran past both of them into the apartment and directly to Mrs. Alvarez's old cat, which tolerated her with the weary patience of a creature who had made its peace with the universe long ago. Ethan watched her for a second. Then he kissed the top of Mrs. Alvarez's head because he didn't know what else to do, and she swatted him on the shoulder and told him to get lost. He drove to the Blue Heron. The diner at noon looked smaller than it had at 3 in the morning. It always did. Daylight made it ordinary, a box of chrome and vinyl at the end of a service road, with a hand-lettered sign in the window that said PIE and another that said AC working again. The gravel lot held 4 cars and a motorcycle. A crow was going through the trash bag that had torn open behind the station, which Ethan, with the detached absurdity of a man whose life has stopped making sense, noted was still there. Daniel Okafor was waiting in a booth by the window. He was in his mid-30s, black, built like somebody who had played tight end in college and still ran a few miles a week to keep the shape of it. He was wearing a suit that had been tailored, a tie he'd loosened, and an expression that was carefully neutral in the way of men who have learned that their face, in a room full of strangers, is a thing they have to manage. He stood when Ethan walked in. Mr. Cole. Just Ethan. Daniel. They shook hands. Daniel's grip was firm and brief. They sat. The waitress who came over was not Chloe. Ethan noticed. He didn't say anything. He ordered coffee. Daniel ordered coffee and a club sandwich. The waitress left. Daniel leaned forward, elbows on the table, hands folded. Before we start, he said, I want to show you something. Okay. Daniel pulled out his phone. He turned it around and pressed play. It was the clip. But it wasn't the clip. It was longer, 30 seconds longer at the front. It started with Brandon grabbing Chloe's wrist. It had sound. You could hear Brandon say, Sit down, Chloe, I'm asking nicely. You could hear Chloe's small exhale when his grip tightened. You could hear Ethan say, Let her go. The video ran through to the end, with Brandon throwing the hundreds on the table, with his friends walking out. It ended. Ethan stared at it. Where'd you get that? I can't tell you. Why not? Because the person who sent it to me asked me not to tell you, and I tend to keep those promises. Ethan looked at him. Chloe. Daniel didn't answer. She sent it to you. I can't confirm or deny that. That's a yes. Mr. Cole. Ethan. Ethan, I need you to understand something. The reason I'm here is because somebody I trust reached out to me early this morning and told me that a man was about to lose everything he had for doing the right thing, and that this man had a daughter, and that I was going to want to take this case because it was going to matter. That's why I'm here. I'm not going to tell you who made that call, but I'm also not going to insult you by pretending it wasn't a call. Okay? Okay? Okay. Daniel sat back. You're taking this very calmly. I'm not calm. I'm just quiet. There's a difference? Big one. Daniel made a small sound that wasn't quite a laugh. He picked up his coffee. He put it down again without drinking. All right, here's where we are. By my count, you've been fired from 3 jobs this morning. You are on, at last count, approximately 9 million screens. There is a hashtag, which I'm not going to repeat, because saying it out loud won't help either of us. And Brandon Vance's PR firm has, in the last 4 hours, issued 2 statements claiming that you assaulted him unprovoked, broke his wrist, and have a history of violent behavior. That last part is going to be a problem, because they're going to try to build one. I need to know right now, before I say anything else, if there's anything in your past I should know about. Anything at all. Arrests, domestics, bar fights, DUIs, Article 15S. I don't care how small. I don't care how old. I'd rather hear it now than read it on a blog tomorrow. Ethan thought for a second. Marine Corps, 2011 to 2015. Infantry. Honorable discharge. I was a sergeant. Combat? 2 tours. Any incidents? I got a letter of reprimand once for punching a guy in my platoon. What for? He was beating on a local kid, 12 years old. I told him to stop. He didn't. I stopped him. That's the whole thing? That's the whole thing. Civilian record? Nothing. 1 speeding ticket in 2019. Substance? I don't drink. At all? At all. I drank in the Corps. I stopped when my wife got sick. Your wife. She died 4 years ago. Cancer. Mia was 2. Daniel was quiet. All right, he said finally. All right. Ethan, I'm going to be straight with you. You are the best client I have ever been offered in my career, and that is going to make this fight very ugly, because the other side already knows it. What does that mean? It means Brandon Vance is going to do everything he can in the next 72 hours to find a thing. Anything. A bar fight from when you were 20. An argument with a neighbor. A bad tax year. He's going to try to make you into a story, and the story is going to be that you are an unstable, violent man who was a ticking bomb and went off last night over nothing. He will pay for the story to exist. He will pay for it to be on the front page of websites that people trust. He will pay columnists and podcasters and influencers you've never heard of. He has the money to do it, and he has the lawyers to do it, and he has done it before. Okay? Are you still with me? Yeah. You sure? I'm listening. Here's what we're going to do. We're going to be boring. We're going to be the most boring defense in the history of this kind of case. We are not going to go on any podcasts. We are not going to do any interviews. We are not going to post anything on any platform. We are going to let the full video come out through a third party whose credibility cannot be touched. We are going to wait. We are going to let him burn himself. And in the meantime, I'm going to get a restraining order against every subcontractor and paparazzi outfit Vance uses. I'm going to get your employers on record saying exactly why they fired you, and I am going to build a defamation case that is going to cost Brandon Vance more money than he has ever lost on a single mistake in his life. I don't have money for any of that. I'm taking your case pro bono. Why? Daniel looked at him for a long moment. Because 5 years ago, a man like Brandon Vance did something similar to my cousin, and my cousin didn't have a lawyer, and my cousin is not alive anymore. That's why. Ethan didn't know what to say to that. He said nothing. Daniel looked down at his coffee. When he looked up, his face had settled back into the careful neutral it had started with. I need you to do a few things for me. Okay. I need you to write down everything you remember about last night. Every detail. The time you walked in, what you ordered, what she said, what he said, where the friends were sitting, what they were filming with, what they were wearing. Don't try to make it pretty. Just write it down. Okay? I need you to stay off the internet. Okay. I need you to tell your daughter something, and I need you to tell her today. What? That some people on television are going to be saying some things about you, and that those things aren't true, and that no matter what she hears at school, her father has not done what they're saying he did. Kids hear more than we think they do. She's going to hear something at that school tomorrow, or the next day, and you need to have said it first, or it's going to hurt you both. She's 6. I know. I don't know how to tell a 6-year-old that. Nobody does. You're going to have to anyway. Ethan stared out the window. In the lot, the crow had given up on the trash bag and was walking back and forth across the hood of his truck, looking for something. Okay. Last thing. Yeah. If Chloe contacts you again, I need you to tell me. Why? Because she is either the most useful witness in this case, or she is a complication we don't understand yet, and I need to know which. She's a witness. You don't know that. She's a witness. How do you know? Because she recorded the whole thing on something she had in her apron, and she told me she did, And she told me the recording was uploading to a server he couldn't touch, and she didn't have to tell me any of that, and she did anyway. That's a witness. Daniel leaned back slowly. You're sure about this? I'm sure. She said a server he couldn't touch. Yes. Those exact words? Yes. Daniel was quiet for a long time. His hand had gone still on his coffee cup. Ethan, what does a waitress at a roadside diner do that she has a device in her apron that records audio and video and uploads it to a server that the legal team of a private equity fund can't touch? I don't know. Take a guess. I don't guess. Daniel looked at him. Then he pulled out a small notebook and wrote something down. Ethan watched him do it. Are you going to tell me what you just wrote? No. Okay. I need to make some calls. Okay. I'll be in touch by tonight. Until then, the phone is off. Door's locked. Mia stays close. You don't answer the door for anyone you don't know, and if you see a camera near your apartment, you call me. Do you think they'd come to my apartment? Ethan. Yeah. They're already there. He was. When Ethan pulled back into the lot at 110, there was a man on the sidewalk in a puffer jacket with a camera around his neck, not shooting, just waiting. He was standing near the mailboxes. He was pretending to be on his phone, but his phone wasn't lit. Ethan drove past him. He parked on the far side of the lot. He walked up the back stairs, the ones nobody used because they were cracked and the rail was loose, and he went in through the back door of the building and up to Mrs. Alvarez's apartment and knocked 3 times. Mia was asleep on the couch with the old cat on her chest. Don't wake her, Mrs. Alvarez whispered. She's had a day. Somebody was downstairs. I saw him. From the window. Henry's going to talk to him. Henry? The landlord. He knows you, Ethan. He's a grouchy old fool, but he doesn't like strangers hanging around his building. He'll handle it. Ethan sat down on the edge of the couch. Mia didn't stir. The cat opened one eye, looked at him, closed it again. He put his hand very gently on his daughter's forehead and left it there. Mrs. Alvarez. Yes, mijo. I have to tell her something tonight. What? About the video. She thought about it. She crossed herself, out of habit, not belief, because it had been a long time since she'd been to any church, but the gesture was old in her hands. Tell her the truth. How much of it? As much as a 6-year-old can hold. Tell her somebody said something about Daddy that isn't true. Tell her Daddy is okay. Tell her Daddy will always come home. That's enough, Ethan. That's what she needs. The rest will come later when she's older. Okay. You eat today? No. Sit down. Mrs. Alvarez, Siéntate. He sat. She made him a sandwich. He ate it standing at her counter while she watched him, because she didn't trust him to eat it if she didn't watch him, because she'd been doing this for 12 years, and she was not about to stop now. At 4 in the afternoon, Ethan's phone rang from a blocked number. He let it go to voicemail. He listened to the voicemail. Mr. Cole, this is Marcus Willett from the Daily Current. We're running a story on the diner incident this evening, and I was hoping to get a comment from you before we publish. We have sources telling us that you have a history of violent behavior, that you were discharged from the Marine Corps under other than honorable conditions, and that you have been the subject of multiple domestic complaints from your late wife. I want to give you the opportunity to respond to those allegations before we go to press. The number I'm calling from is... Ethan deleted the voicemail. His hands were not steady now. They had been steady at 2 in the morning, with a drunk man's hand under his own, with a wristwatch and $300 on the table and a waitress he didn't know rubbing her wrist 10 feet away. They were not steady now, sitting on the couch in his own apartment, in the middle of a Wednesday afternoon, while a stranger on a voicemail told a lie about his dead wife. He called Daniel. They're saying things about Sarah. About who? My wife. They're saying she filed complaints. They're saying I hit her. There was a pause on Daniel's end, a long one. Ethan. She had stage 4 ovarian cancer. She weighed 87 pounds when she died. I carried her to the bathroom for the last 3 months of her life. They're saying Ethan, stop. Stop. Breathe. He stopped. He breathed. He realized distantly that he had not been breathing. Okay. I told you they were going to do this. I know. I need you to not react. I need you to not call that reporter. I need you to not post anything. I need you to sit on your hands and let me handle it. I am filing a cease and desist against the Daily Current in the next 30 minutes. They are not publishing that story tonight. If they try, I will put them in front of a jury inside of a year, and I will win. Do you hear me? Yes. Say it back. I'm not going to call them. I'm not going to post. I'm going to sit on my hands. Good. Daniel. Yeah. She was the best person I ever knew. I'm sorry, Ethan. Okay. He hung up. He sat on the couch for a long time. Then he walked into the bedroom and opened the bottom drawer of the dresser, the one that stuck, the one Mia had never been able to open because she couldn't pull hard enough. He pulled out a wooden box. Inside the wooden box was a stack of envelopes tied with a rubber band, and a wedding ring, and a photograph of a woman with short brown hair and a green beanie, laughing, holding up a mug of something that was probably hot chocolate. On a bench in a park in a winter that had happened 8 years ago, before any of this, before Mia, before cancer, before anything, he looked at the photograph for a long time. He put it back. He closed the drawer. He sat on the edge of the bed, and he pressed the heels of his hands against his eyes until he saw colors. Then he went to get Mia. He didn't tell her that night. Not exactly. She was in her pajamas. Her hair was wet from the bath. She smelled like the cheap coconut conditioner she liked, and she was sitting on his lap on the couch, and they were watching a cartoon about a family of ducks. Bug. Yeah. I need to tell you something. Okay. Some people on the internet are saying things about Daddy, things that aren't true. What things? They're saying Daddy hurt somebody. She was quiet. He could feel her thinking. He could feel her thinking very hard. Did you? No? Like promise? I promise. Pinky? Pinky. She held up her pinky. He wrapped his around it. She was satisfied. Why are they saying that? Because there was a man at the diner last night who was being mean to somebody, and I stopped him, and somebody made a video that looked like I was the mean one. That's not fair. No, it's not. Daddy? Yeah, Bug. If someone at school says something mean about you, can I punch them? No. Can I tell them they're wrong? Yes. Okay. She snuggled into his chest. Daddy. Yeah. Don't go to the diner anymore. Okay. For real. For real. She fell asleep against his shoulder, halfway through the cartoon, with her small hand flat against his collarbone. He held her. He didn't move. He was very careful not to move, because she was 6 and she was not going to be 6 forever, and there were not very many nights like this one left in his life, even if he lived to be 100. At 9:30, his phone buzzed on the coffee table. Text message. From a number he didn't recognize. Don't talk to reporters, don't post anything. Your lawyer is good. Stay home tomorrow. I'll be in touch. Then, 30 seconds later, a second message. Your wife's name was Sarah. The reporter didn't have that. Someone did. Then, 30 seconds after that, a third. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. This is almost over. Ethan stared at the phone. He looked at his daughter, asleep against his shoulder. He looked at the window, at the lot, where the man with the camera had been, and where Henry the landlord had, apparently, eventually convinced him to leave. He looked at the photograph of Sarah in his head, on the bench, in the green beanie, laughing at something he could no longer remember. He didn't text back, but he didn't delete the messages either. He sat on the couch with his daughter asleep against him and the TV on with the sound down and the rain starting up again outside. Gentler this time, steady, the kind of rain that was going to fall all night, the kind of rain that washes things down streets and into drains and out to places nobody ever sees. Somewhere across town, in a glass building whose name was etched in steel above the front doors, a young woman with dark hair and a ponytail sat in front of 6 monitors in a room that did not officially exist, watching a file upload complete, and thought, not for the first time, that it would have been easier if Ethan Cole had been less decent. That it would have been simpler. That a meaner man, or a weaker one, or a man without a 6-year-old daughter asleep in the next room, would not have cost her what this one was about to. She pulled up a window. She typed a name into it. A phone number populated. She stared at it for a long time. Then she picked up her phone and she made the call she had been avoiding for 7 months. The call to the person she had sworn, 1 year ago, in a conversation that had ended with a slammed door in a house overlooking the ocean, that she would not make again until she had something worth calling about. "Dad," she said, "it's me. I need your lawyers." And on the other end of the line, a man who had not heard his daughter's voice in 211 days sat up slowly in a chair in an office on the 34th floor of a building in a different state, and set down the pen he had been holding, and said, in a voice that did not, for once in his life, sound like a man who was in charge of anything, "Chloe, what have you done? Chloe, what have you done?" On her end of the line, Chloe Sinclair sat with her feet flat on the cold tile of a hotel bathroom floor, because the bathroom was the only room in the suite she hadn't yet checked for microphones, and she wasn't in a mood to be surprised by her own family. The tub was dry. The light was off. She had her knees pulled up and her laptop balanced on them, and through the thin door she could hear the city outside the 32nd floor window, the soft, far-off rush of a freeway that never quite slept. "I'm working," she said. "You're working?" "Yes." "Chloe, it's on every screen in the country. I watched it this morning. I watched it again 2 hours ago. My head of PR watched it. My head of security watched it. The goddamn board watched it. And then my phone rings, and it's you. And you say, 'Dad, I need your lawyers, and I want you to understand very carefully that I am choosing right now, in this moment, between being furious with you and being relieved that you're alive.'" "I'm alive." "Which one of those men was the one you planted yourself next to?" "None of them." "Then who?" "The one who got up." There was a silence on the other end, a long one. She could picture him. Wesley Sinclair, 63 years old, lean as a heron, hair gone silver at the temples 20 years ago, and never getting any silver because Wesley Sinclair had decided sometime in the late 90s that he was done aging and had simply stopped. He'd be standing now, probably. He always stood when he was angry. He'd be standing at the window in the office on the 34th floor, looking out at a skyline that his grandfather had helped build, and that he, in his particular way, had helped ruin. The man from the gas station. He doesn't work at a gas station anymore. He got fired this morning from 3 jobs. "Chloe, his wife is dead, Dad. He has a 6-year-old. They're calling him a wife beater on the news right now. A reporter called him this afternoon and told him they had sources saying he beat his dying wife. Chloe, stop. He carried her to the bathroom for the last 3 months of her life." "How do you know that?" "Because I did my homework. Because I always do my homework. Because, unlike everyone who works for you, I don't pick a subject by looking at his paycheck. I pick one by looking at what he does when nobody's watching. And this man, for 18 months, has been paying $30 out of his own pocket to call ride shares for drunks who come into his station because he doesn't want anybody to die on the way home. And he makes $15 an hour. And he has a 6-year-old. And last night a man with more money than decency put his hand on a stranger in a diner. And this one stood up, and now his life is over, and mine is finally useful." "Ah, Miss So. Her father was quiet. "Chloe." "Yes." "Come home." "No." "Come home tonight." "No, Dad." "Then at the very least tell me you are not still at the Blue Heron." "I'm not at the Blue Heron." "Where are you?" "I'm somewhere safe. Safer than the Heron. I moved this afternoon, after the clip went up." "Who do you have with you?" "2 people." "My 2 people?" "One of yours. One of mine." "I don't like the one of yours." "You don't know the one of mine. That's precisely why I don't like him." She almost smiled, in the dark, in the dry bathtub, with her laptop glowing blue against her knees. "I need the lawyers, Dad. I need Pemberton. I need the whole office. I need the kind of firepower that makes Brandon Vance's people look at their retainer agreement and ask each other very quietly whether they have the stomach for this. I need a cease and desist to the Daily Current, the Ledger, and 3 podcasts by noon tomorrow. And I need a press strategy that doesn't involve me giving a single interview until the recording drops. Because the second I'm on a screen, the story stops being about him and starts being about my last name. What dictates? And Pemberton costs $900 an hour. I'm aware. Who's paying for it? You are. Am I? Yes. He let out a long breath. It wasn't a laugh. It might have been a prayer if Wesley Sinclair had been the sort of man who prayed, which he was not. Chloe. Yes, Dad. Your mother is going to kill you. Tell her I love her. She is going to kill me. Tell her you love her too. I'm going to call Pemberton in the morning. Call him tonight. It's 9 at night. Call him now, Dad. He's awake. He's always awake. There was another silence. This man, her father said. This Ethan Cole. You are certain of him. I am certain of him. You've met him how many times? Once. Once. Dad, I watched 8 months of footage of him before last night. I had 2 cameras on that diner for 6 weeks. I watched him pay for a stranger's cab 3 separate times when he didn't know anybody was looking. I watched him break up a fight between 2 truckers by buying them coffee. I watched him carry a drunk woman's groceries to her car in the rain. I have known who Ethan Cole is for a long time. Last night was the first time I sat in front of him. That's all. You ran a study on a man. I ran a study on a gas station. He happened to work there. Chloe, listen to what you're saying to me. I know what I'm saying. You are 26 years old. I know how old I am, Dad. You are the only child of... I know who I am, the only child of Dad. I've been the only child of it for 26 years. I am aware. He stopped. She let him stop. That was a rule with her father. You let him stop. Pemberton, he said finally. In the morning, first thing, I will have him call the lawyer this man has already retained. What's his name? Daniel Okafor. Never heard of him. You wouldn't have. He takes cases you wouldn't take. Is he any good? Yes. You're sure? His cousin was killed by a man like Brandon Vance 5 years ago. He doesn't lose. A pause. All right. Thank you, Dad. Chloe. Yes. If you get hurt doing this, I know. If you get hurt doing this, I will not forgive you. I know, Dad. Your mother will not forgive you. I know. I love you. I love you too. He hung up. She sat in the dark bathroom for a long time with the laptop on her knees, and she did not cry because she had not cried since she was 11, and she was not going to start tonight. But she put her forehead down on the top of the laptop, and she closed her eyes, and she let out a breath that had been sitting in her chest since about 3 in the morning. Then she opened her eyes. She lifted the laptop. She typed a message to a single recipient. Pemberton will call your office tomorrow morning. Let him. Don't ask questions. She hit send. In an apartment on the other side of the city, Daniel Okafor's phone buzzed on his nightstand. He read the message. He read it twice. He looked at his ceiling for a long minute. Then he got up and made a pot of coffee because he wasn't going to sleep tonight anyway, and there was no point in pretending. Thursday morning arrived, as mornings do, without asking whether anybody was ready for it. Ethan woke at 5:50 out of habit. The alarm hadn't gone off. He'd turned it off before he'd gone to sleep because there was nowhere to be. He lay in bed for a full minute, staring at the cracked paint on the ceiling before he remembered why. Then he remembered all of it. He got up. He made coffee. He did not open his phone. Mia came out of her bedroom at 6:40, still in pajamas, dragging her blanket. She climbed into his lap at the kitchen table, which was not a thing she usually did, and put her cheek against his chest, and did not ask for breakfast, and did not ask for cartoons, and said very quietly, "Daddy." "Yeah, Bug." "Do I have to go to school today?" He looked down at the top of her head. "Why?" "Because." "Tell me why, Mia." "Because Emma's mom said something yesterday." He went very still. What did Emma's mom say? When she was picking Emma up, she was at the fence. I was at the fence. She didn't know I could hear. What did she say, sweetheart? She said to Emma's dad that I shouldn't be at our school anymore because my daddy is dangerous. He put his hand on the back of her head. He held it there. He did not move for a very long time. Bug. "Yeah. You don't have to go to school today. Okay? And I'm going to talk to Emma's mom." "Daddy, don't." "I'll be polite, Mia." "Daddy, please don't." Okay, I won't." She burrowed closer into his chest. She was getting heavy. She was not going to fit in his lap like this for very much longer. That thought, the thought of a day coming when she would not fit, landed in him harder than anything a reporter had said on a voicemail the day before, and he bent his head down and put his nose against her hair and breathed once in and out. I love you, Bug. Love you too. You're a brave kid. I'm not brave. You are. I'm not, Daddy. I'm scared. Me too, he said. That's what being brave is, being scared and doing it anyway. She thought about that for a second. Daddy? Yeah. Were you scared at the diner? Yes. Were you brave? He thought about the man's hand on the waitress's wrist. He thought about the camera phone held low and casual. He thought about the sound of her small exhale, about the buzzing of the fluorescent lights, about the old trucker at the counter saying Jesus and Shelley crossing herself, and the couple in the back booth leaning into each other and whispering the version of the story they were going to tell at work. I tried to be. That counts. Yeah, he said. I think it does. But the boy sees then. Daniel Okafor called at 8:15 and, Ethan? Daniel? Something's happening. What? I got a call this morning from a firm called Pemberton and Royce. I don't know who that is. You don't need to. Most people don't. The people who do know who they are the people being sued by them. They're one of the most expensive civil litigation firms in the country. 3 offices, 200 lawyers. They represent tech families and oil families and people whose last names are on buildings you've heard of. They do not take civil harassment cases. They do not take defamation cases. They do not, as a general rule, represent gas station employees. Okay, they are, as of this morning, representing you. Ethan was quiet. Daniel. Yeah. I can't afford that firm. You're not paying that firm. Then who is? Ethan. Who? Daniel. I can't answer that question yet because I don't actually know for a fact, and the person who called me this morning from Pemberton was very careful to tell me that the client's identity was, for the moment, confidential. But I can guess. You can guess. I think we're guessing the same thing. Chloe. Chloe or Chloe's family, and given the kind of money that just walked through my office door, it is not Chloe. Ethan sat down on the arm of the couch. Who is she, Daniel? I don't know yet. I'm going to know by the end of today. What I can tell you right now is that by noon there will be cease and desist orders filed against the Daily Current, the Ledger, and 3 podcasts that have been running with the Brandon Vance story for the last 24 hours. There will be an emergency motion filed in state court to preserve all footage from the diner security system, your employer's communications with third parties, and all social media posts about you from accounts that can be traced to Brandon Vance's PR firm. There will, within 48 hours, be a countersuit. A countersuit for defamation, for tortious interference with employment, for intentional infliction of emotional distress, for conspiracy. The damages number on the filing is going to be large enough that Brandon Vance is going to have to put it on his schedule when he looks at his insurance. Daniel. Yeah. I don't want money from him. I know. I just want my jobs back. I know, Ethan. I know you do. But this is not a fight that ends with 3 jobs back. This is a fight that ends with him not being able to do this to anybody else. Do you understand the difference? Ethan looked at his daughter. She was on the couch now, curled against a pillow, not watching cartoons, just staring at the ceiling. 6 years old, staring at the ceiling. Yes? Good. Daniel. Yeah. Is he going to come after Mia? There was a pause. Not directly. He won't put her name in a story. He won't put her face in a photo. He knows better. If any of his people were that stupid, Pemberton is going to put them in a hole so deep they won't see daylight until the next administration. What he will do is keep the pressure on you. He will keep the story alive. He will keep feeding reporters. He will keep finding neighbors and former coworkers willing to say strange, small things on the record. He is going to try to grind you down. He is betting that you will break before he does. Okay. Are you going to break? No. Good. Daniel? Yeah. The woman at the school. What woman? At Mia's school. Emma's mom. She said something about Mia yesterday in front of other parents. What did she say? That Mia shouldn't be at the school because her father is dangerous. Another pause. Did Mia hear her? Yes. Daniel exhaled slowly. Write her name down for me. The woman. I'll have somebody at the school by this afternoon. Daniel, I don't... Ethan, write her name down for me. Okay. I'll call you tonight. Daniel hung up. Ethan sat on the arm of the couch with the phone in his hand. He did not move for a long time. Mia rolled onto her side on the couch and looked at him. Daddy. Yeah. Is that lawyer man nice? Yeah, he's nice. Is he going to fix it? Ethan thought about the answer to that question. He thought about what it cost a 6-year-old to hear the word no from her father about something that mattered. He thought about what it cost a 6-year-old to hear the word yes from her father about something that might not happen. He chose a third thing. He's going to try very hard, Bug. Okay? She nodded. She was satisfied. Mia was usually satisfied by her father's answers, because her father had spent her entire life being careful about the answers he gave her, which was another thing he had done instead of sleeping. At 9:20, Ethan's phone rang from an unknown number. He almost didn't answer it. He answered it. Hello? Mr. Cole? It was a woman's voice. It was not a voice he knew. Yes. My name is Helena Park. I am a senior reporter with the Ridgeline Post. I know you have probably received a number of calls in the last 48 hours. I would like to make mine different from the others. How? I have been emailed a recording. Ethan went still. What recording? A recording that runs approximately 4 minutes and 17 seconds. It was taken inside the Blue Heron Diner on Tuesday night, shortly before 3 in the morning. It has full audio. It shows Brandon Vance grabbing the wrist of the waitress who served him. It shows her asking him to stop. It shows her pad falling to the floor. It shows you standing up and asking him to let her go. It shows him refusing. It shows you approaching. It shows you placing your hand on top of his. It shows him releasing her. It shows him throwing 3 $100 bills on the table and leaving. It shows his friend filming you the entire time. Mr. Cole, I've watched this recording 4 times this morning. I want to go to press with it this evening. Before I do, I would like to offer you the opportunity to speak on the record. I would also like to offer you the opportunity to decline. Either answer is acceptable. I will print the story either way. Ethan took a long breath. Who sent it to you? That is a question I would be unable to answer even if you were my editor, Mr. Cole. Is the Ridgeline Post the only paper that has it? No. By my understanding, the file was sent simultaneously to 7 publications this morning. 3 of the others will run it by close of business today. 1 has chosen not to. 2 are still deliberating. 1 has already begun. We are the last to call you. I am calling you because I did not want this to go to press without you having the chance to say something, if you wish to. Who decided you were the last? The person who sent the file. They asked us to go in a specific order. You have been contacted by all of the other publications in the last 10 minutes. You did not pick up. Ethan looked at his phone. There were 4 missed calls, all from numbers he didn't recognize. He had not heard any of them ring. Helena. Yes. I don't want to speak on the record. Okay. I'm not giving any interviews right now. Okay. I have a 6-year-old daughter. I would like my daughter to not have to hear her father's voice on the radio tonight telling people what happened in a diner at 3 in the morning. Would that make sense to you? Yes, Mr. Cole. That makes complete sense to me. Thank you for calling. Can I tell you something? Off the record. Yeah. I have been a reporter for 23 years. I have seen a great many of these stories. Most of them do not end well for the man who stood up. The ones that do end well because somebody with more resources than him decided to stand behind him. Do you understand what I am saying to you? I think I do. Somebody is standing behind you, Mr. Cole. I don't know who. I don't know why. But I have been in this business long enough to know when it is happening, and it is happening. I hope you have good people around you. I have a 6-year-old. That counts? Yeah. That's what I thought too. She hung up. The recording went up at 3 in the afternoon. It was on 7 homepages by 3:15. By 4, 2 cable news networks had picked it up. By 4:30, one of them was running it on a ticker at the bottom of the screen. By 5, a woman who had been a barista at a coffee shop 4 blocks from the Vance Portfolio Group had come forward with a statement about something that had happened to her at a Christmas party in 2022. By 5:30, a second woman had come forward. By 6, a third. By 7, a former employee of a hotel in Aspen had filed a sealed complaint with the hotel's HR department, dated 18 months earlier, which had been buried with a settlement and a non-disclosure agreement that, as of Thursday evening, a court in Colorado was being asked to review. Ethan watched none of it. He sat on the couch with Mia, and they watched a cartoon about a small dog who was learning to be brave, and he did not look at his phone. And he did not look at the TV news. And when Mia fell asleep against him at 8, he carried her to bed and tucked her in and stood in the doorway for a long time looking at her before he went back out to the living room and sat down and put his face in his hands. His phone rang at 9:02. It was Daniel. "Turn on channel 4. "I don't want to." "Ethan, turn on channel 4. He turned on channel 4. A woman in a dark blazer was speaking to the camera. The banner across the bottom of the screen said, "Vance under investigation. SEC opens inquiry into portfolio group." Daniel: "Yeah, they're opening an SEC inquiry. They're opening 3 inquiries, Ethan. The SEC is one. The state AG is another. The third is a federal grand jury that was already looking at him for something else and has just had a very, very useful gift dropped in its lap. His PR firm put out a statement 20 minutes ago. It's already been picked apart. By tomorrow morning, 2 of his board members are going to resign because their own counsel has told them to. By Monday, the portfolio group is going to announce that Brandon is stepping down as chairman to focus on personal matters. By next Friday, there will be a criminal referral. This is over, Ethan. The public piece is over. The legal piece is going to take a year, but the public piece is over." Ethan stared at the television. "Daniel." "Yeah. I'm not happy. I know. I thought I would be happy. I know. I just feel tired. That's what this feels like, Ethan. Okay. Get some sleep." "Yeah. I'll call in the morning." Daniel hung up. Ethan sat on the couch with the television on and the sound off. The woman in the dark blazer was gone. She had been replaced by a graphic showing the Vance Portfolio Group's stock price, which had dropped 11% in 3 hours, which the ticker helpfully noted was the largest single-day drop in the fund's history. He muted the television further, which didn't do anything because it was already muted. He set down the remote. He went and stood in the doorway of Mia's bedroom and watched her sleep for a long time. She had kicked the blanket off again. One of her stuffed animals, a rabbit named Chester, who had been Sarah's when Sarah was a little girl, had fallen on the floor. He picked Chester up and put him back on the bed under Mia's arm. He pulled the blanket back up. He went out to the kitchen. His phone buzzed on the counter. He looked at it. Unknown number. "You don't know me, but I'm the woman in the cartoon this morning. The one at the school. I'm Emma's mom. I've spent the day wanting to die. What I said to my husband in front of your daughter was unforgivable. I watched the full video tonight. I don't have any excuse. I don't expect you to forgive me. I am sending this because your daughter deserves to know that I was wrong. And I said so to my own daughter at dinner tonight, and I am prepared to say it to the whole school in the morning if that will help. I will not contact you again. I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. I am so sorry." He read it twice. He did not reply. He set the phone down. He stood at the counter with both hands on the edge of it, and he looked out the window at the parking lot, which was empty tonight except for his truck and Mrs. Alvarez's old Buick, and he tried to feel something about the woman's text, and he couldn't, quite. It was not that he was angry. It was not that he forgave her. It was that there was a space inside him where those feelings should have been, and the space was full of something else. And the something else was a kind of cold, clean awareness of how easy it had been, how fast it had happened, how quickly a stranger with a little money and a little time could unmake a man in front of his own child. He thought about the 487,000 people at 6 in the morning. He thought about the next man this happened to, and the next. He thought for the first time that being cleared was not going to be enough. At 10:20, his phone buzzed again, a different number this time. He almost didn't recognize it. Then he did. It was the number that had texted him at 9:30 the night before. The one that had said, "Your lawyer is good, and don't post, and I'm sorry, Mr. Cole. This is almost over. Can we meet?" He stared at the screen. He thought about Daniel's voice that morning, telling him to let Daniel know if Chloe contacted him. He thought about Mia asleep in the next room. He thought about Sarah, 8 years ago, on a bench, in a green beanie, laughing. He typed, "When?" The reply came back almost immediately. "Tomorrow. Not the Heron. Somewhere else. You pick." He thought about it for a long moment. He thought about what he was willing to risk and what he wasn't. He thought about his own truck in a lot somewhere with his daughter in it, and he thought about a reporter with a long lens, and he thought about the look on Mrs. Alvarez's face when she'd opened the door that afternoon. He typed, "There's a park off Highland, small one, playground, parking lot in back. 11 a.m. I'll be there. Come alone." A pause. "I'm always alone." He looked at that sentence for a long time. He set the phone down on the counter. He turned off the kitchen light. He stood in the dark of his own apartment with his hand flat against the cool formica, and he listened to the building, the old familiar creak of the pipes, the tick of the refrigerator, the far-off sound of somebody's television through the wall, somebody watching something normal, somebody who had not been fired from 3 jobs in one morning, somebody whose daughter had not heard her father called dangerous by a stranger at a schoolyard fence. Across town, in a hotel suite she had booked that afternoon under a name that was not her own, Chloe Sinclair sat on the edge of a bed and watched the confirmation light on her phone go dark. Her hair was down for the first time in 3 days. There was a bandage on her wrist, a small one, where the bruise from Brandon Vance's hand had gone from red to purple to the strange yellow-brown of a bruise that was starting to forgive its own skin. She had not noticed it until the shower that morning. She had not been looking for it. She put the phone face down on the nightstand. She looked at the bandage. She thought about the man at the counter who had said Jesus. She thought about Shelley, who was currently being paid enough by a lawyer she had never met to take a month off work and sit in her sister's house in Michigan and not come back until this was over. She thought about Ethan's daughter, whom she had not yet seen, and whose name she had known for 6 months, because that was how long she had been doing this kind of homework on the kind of man she had decided she was going to ask to help her. She thought about her father on the phone. "If you get hurt doing this, I will not forgive you." She thought about the 6 weeks of footage of Ethan Cole paying for ride shares for drunks at his own expense. She thought about the fact that somewhere in the country, a man younger than Ethan, with less in the bank, with fewer people to lean on, was about to step between a different stranger and a different man, tomorrow or the next day or next year, and was going to get ground up by the same machine that had almost ground up Ethan, and nobody was going to catch him. Nobody was going to be sitting in a hotel room with 6 monitors and a Pemberton retainer. Nobody was going to plant 2 cameras in a diner 6 weeks before he walked through the door. And the part of her that was her father's daughter, the part that had grown up in a house with 3 wings and a view of the sea and had been told at the age of 11 that she could have anything she wanted from the world as long as she remembered that the world did not owe her any of it. The part that had been trained from the age of 16 in how fortunes are built and lost and defended, that part of her sat very still on the edge of the bed and said quietly to no one, "Then build the machine for him." She lay back on the bed, still in her clothes. She stared at the ceiling. She did not sleep, but she closed her eyes, and she listened to the city, and she thought about a man she had met once in a diner at 3 in the morning, and about a small girl she had never met at all, and about what exactly she was going to say to him tomorrow, at 11 in the morning, at a park she had never been to, where the parking lot was in back. Across the city, in the same dark, Ethan Cole stood at his kitchen window and looked at the empty lot, and thought about the exact same meeting from the other side. The rain had stopped. Neither of them slept. The park off Highland was the kind of place people didn't take photographs of. A rectangle of grass that had given up on being green sometime in August. A playground with 1 swing that worked and 1 that didn't. A basketball hoop with no net. A picnic table somebody had spray painted and somebody else had tried, half-heartedly, to clean. The parking lot in back was cracked asphalt. 3 spots. A dumpster at the end. No cameras. No foot traffic. A chain-link fence between the lot and a storage yard that Ethan had, in a previous life, delivered a fridge to once in 2021. He got there at 10:40. He'd dropped Mia at Mrs. Alvarez's at 10:15. He'd walked out the back. He'd driven 3 blocks the wrong way, then the right way, then 3 more blocks the wrong way again. Watching his mirrors, which was a thing he had not done in a decade, and which had come back to him the way riding a bike comes back, without asking. Nobody was following him. He sat in the truck with the engine off and the window cracked and waited. At 10:58, a car turned into the lot. A gray sedan, nothing about it. A rental, maybe. It parked 2 spaces over. A woman got out of the driver's seat. It was Chloe. She wasn't wearing the apron. She wasn't wearing the ponytail. Her hair was loose, past her shoulders, darker in daylight than it had looked in the diner. She was in jeans and a plain sweater and sneakers. No jewelry except a thin watch on her left wrist, which she was wearing, Ethan noticed, over a bandage. She walked over. He rolled the window down the rest of the way. "Mr. Cole." "Ethan." "Ethan, can I sit?" He nodded at the passenger seat. She walked around the hood, and he watched her walk, the way he watched everything, and she was watching him watching her, and neither of them pretended otherwise. She got in. She closed the door. She put her hands flat on her thighs, palms down, a gesture that looked practiced, like something a person who had been coached in how to sit in front of hostile strangers did without thinking about it anymore. "Thank you for coming," she said. "Your hand." "It's fine. That's a bandage." "It's fine, Ethan." He let it go. The truck ticked as it cooled. Out the windshield, a pigeon worked its way across the empty basketball court, looking for something. Ethan watched the pigeon for a second because that was easier than watching her. "Who are you?" "Chloe Sinclair?" He waited. "My father is Wesley Sinclair. My family owns Sinclair Reach. We made communications hardware. For the military, for first responders, for a lot of other places. We sold most of it in 2019. The rest we kept. I run a research arm out of the San Jose office. It's small, about 40 people. We build safety equipment for environments where the people using it are not supposed to know they're being protected." "Like who?" "Like housekeepers at hotels who get put in rooms with men who forget the door isn't locked. Like waitresses in diners on service roads. Like the daughter of a politician who goes to college in a state she doesn't know anybody in. That kind." "Okay. The fob I had in my apron the other night is one of ours. It's a prototype. It records audio and video through 2 pinhole lenses. It uploads continuously over a private network. The point of it is that the person carrying it doesn't have to decide in the moment whether what's happening is bad enough to press a button. It's always on. It deletes automatically after 72 hours unless something flags it. What flags it? Specific sounds, specific motions. A voice saying stop, a grip, a person being pulled. We trained the model on about 6,000 hours of footage. Whose footage? Security footage, consented footage, dashcam archives we bought. None of it was taken from anybody who didn't know. Okay, I work out of the Heron 6 weeks a year, sometimes 8. I work other places the other weeks. I pick towns where the data's thin, the kind of places nobody in a San Jose conference room would know anything real about. I wait tables, I take shifts, I listen, I watch. I do not, as a general rule, let anybody I'm studying know I'm studying them. I don't interfere. I don't intervene. I don't even make eye contact longer than I have to. That's a rule. It's my rule. I made it, and I kept it for 2.5 years. Until Tuesday. He turned and looked at her. "Why me?" She didn't look away. "Because I'd been watching you for 6 weeks. Not on purpose at first. You came into the Heron at the end of your shift every other night. I noticed because you always ordered the same thing. Then I noticed because you tipped Shelley the same, whether she got your order right or wrong. Then I noticed because one night you walked an old man out to his car in the rain and sat in the passenger seat for 20 minutes while he cried. I didn't know what he was crying about. I still don't. I noticed. That's all. Chloe, let me finish because I'm not going to do this again. My team put a second camera in the diner 4 weeks ago. 2, actually. One above the counter. One in the vent over booth 3. Not to watch you, to watch everyone. You got caught in it because you were there. We have you paying for 3 ride shares for drunks out of your own paycheck. We have you buying 2 coffees for a couple who were arguing so hard in the back booth I thought somebody was going to throw a plate. And then they didn't throw a plate. Because the coffee showed up. Because you paid the $12. We have you returning a wallet to a trucker who'd left it on the counter. You didn't wait for a thank you. You put it on his dashboard and walked away. Okay. I'm not telling you this to make you a saint. I know you're not a saint. I watched you lose your temper at a guy in the lot last month who was revving his engine while his girlfriend was crying in the passenger seat. You told him he was being a coward. You used a word my mother wouldn't let me say at the dinner table. I wrote it down in my notes. I'm not putting a halo on anybody. I'm telling you what I saw because you asked me why." He was quiet. Then, Tuesday. Did you know he was coming?" "No." Brandon Vance had never set foot in the Heron before in his life. He was in town for a conference. One of his people drove him out there looking for a place to get food after the hotel kitchen closed. That was luck. Bad luck. For him, it turned out. "You didn't plant him." "I didn't plant him, Ethan. We don't do that. That's not what we do." "Okay." "What I did do, and this is the part you deserve to know, is when he walked in and I saw the way he walked, and I saw the way his people walked behind him, I thought about where I was sitting, and I thought about where my cameras were, and I thought about the fact that you were 2 booths over, and I made a choice. I could have taken my break. I could have sent Shelley over to that booth. I could have called the owner, who was at home. I could have put the burden on somebody else. I didn't. I took that table. I knew what he was. I'd seen the type, and I'd read about this one. I thought if he did what I thought he was going to do, I wanted to be the person it happened to, because I was the person in the room who was set up to survive it." Ethan stared at the pigeon. "You let him grab you." "I didn't let him do anything. He grabbed me. I thought the odds were about 70% he'd do it. He did it. That's the difference between me and Shelley. Shelley would have frozen. I had a plan." "Your plan was to get grabbed." "My plan was to get him on camera. The getting grabbed was a risk I took to get the rest." "Chloe." "Yes." "That's insane." "I know." "I know, Ethan. You could have—" "I know." He stopped. He put both hands on the steering wheel. He looked at his own hands for a long moment, because looking at her was, at that particular second, more than he could manage. "What would you have done if I hadn't stood up?" She didn't answer right away. "I would have handled it," she said finally. "Not as cleanly, not as quietly. I have training. It would have been ugly. It would have been on the cameras. It would have done the job. It would have cost me things I didn't want to spend. You stood up, and the thing got done, and I didn't have to spend them. And then you called your dad." "No, I called my dad after. I called him last night, because I watched a reporter leave you a voicemail about your wife." He closed his eyes. "You heard that. I have a copy of the voicemail." He played it back to his editor on a conference call at 5 in the afternoon. "I had somebody on the line. I'm not going to tell you who. I listened to it at 7. At 9:30, I called my father. At 10:15, I retained Pemberton. At 11, a courier picked up an envelope from an office downtown that contained every scrap of research I have on Brandon Vance from the last 3 years. That envelope landed on a reporter's desk at 7:45 this morning. Pemberton called your lawyer at 8:03. Chloe. Yes. You did all of that in 12 hours. I've been ready to do it for 11 months. I was waiting for the right reason. I'm sorry the right reason turned out to be you. You're not sorry. I'm sorry it cost you 3 jobs, Ethan. I'm sorry a woman at a schoolyard fence said what she said about your daughter. I am sorry your wife's name was in a reporter's mouth. I am not sorry I did what I did because I would do it again. I am sorry about what it cost you. Those are 2 different things. He looked at her then. Really looked at her, for the first time since she'd gotten in the truck. She looked tired. She looked younger in daylight than she had at 3 in the morning. She looked like a person who had not, in fact, ever learned how to make herself small, and who was not going to start today, and who was, somewhere under all of that, braced for him to tell her to get out of his truck. He didn't. My daughter's name is Mia. I know. 6 years old. I know. Last night she asked me if she had to go to school. I know, Ethan. You know, I have Emma's mother on tape. I have every word she said. I wasn't going to give it to you because I didn't think it would help. If you want it, you can have it. I don't want it. Okay? I want the school to be a school again. That's all I want. The principal of that school got a call this morning from a lawyer at Pemberton. That was not at my direction. That was at Daniel Okafor's direction. I had nothing to do with it. Daniel is his own man. I just paid his retainer. What he does with it is up to him. Ethan almost laughed. It came out as something closer to a breath. You paid Daniel's retainer. Pemberton paid Daniel's retainer. My father paid Pemberton. I'll pay my father back. That part's between him and me. Okay. Ethan. Yeah. I want to tell you what I'm doing next. Not because I want your permission. I don't need it, and I wouldn't ask you to give it. I want to tell you because you deserve to decide whether you want to be in it or out of it, and I want you to decide clear-eyed. All right. There's a bill moving in the state legislature. It's been sitting in committee for 14 months. It's called the Service Worker Safety Act. It's 30 pages long. It covers mandatory protection devices, training, reporting requirements, whistleblower protections for employees of businesses that fail to report. It dies in committee every session, because every session there's a trade association that pays a lobbyist to kill it, because the trade association represents the kind of people who don't want to be on camera in hotel rooms. My family has been trying to get it out of committee for 2 years through channels that, it turns out, don't work. After this week, the channels that didn't work are going to work, because the public mood has moved about 3 feet, and 3 feet is all we ever needed. The bill is going to get out of committee. It is going to pass. When it passes, there will be a program attached to it, a field program. Training, deployment, oversight, enforcement. Somebody is going to run that program. I want it to be a person the workers we're trying to protect will trust on sight. Not a Sinclair, not a Pemberton, not a guy in a suit. I want it to be somebody who has worked 3 jobs. Somebody who knows what it feels like to call a cab for a drunk, out of his own paycheck, because he doesn't want anybody to die. Somebody who has stood up. Ethan turned his head and looked at her. I haven't even got the first job back yet. I know. That's not what I'm offering you. I'm not offering you a job today. I'm not offering you a job next month. I'm telling you that in about 9 months, when the bill passes, there is going to be a position, and if you want it, it's yours. And if you don't, it isn't, and I will not be offended either way. I would have offered it to you before any of this. I was going to. I had a plan. My plan was to spend 6 months getting to know you the normal way, and then ask. Brandon Vance shortened my timeline by 6 months. That's his fault. Not yours. Not mine. His. You were going to ask me anyway. Yes. Before any of this. Yes, Ethan. Why? I told you why. 6 weeks of footage. The old man crying in the car, $30 for a ride share. You don't choose a person because they're perfect. You choose them because of what they do when they think nobody's looking. That's the whole of it. He was quiet for a long time. The pigeon had found whatever it was looking for and had flown off. A kid on a bicycle went past the fence on the far side of the lot, not looking in. Chloe? Yes. I don't know how to say yes to you. Then don't, not today. I don't know how to say no either. Then don't say no today. Say nothing. Take your daughter to the park this weekend. Sleep. Drink a glass of water. Come back to me in 2 weeks. Come back to me in 6. Come back when you know. I'm not going anywhere. The bill isn't going anywhere. The work isn't going anywhere. You don't have to decide anything in this parking lot. Okay. Okay. She looked at him. He looked at her. Chloe. Yes. Thank you for standing up too. She blinked once. She did not cry. She told her father she didn't cry, and she was at 26 still in the habit of being right about that. You're welcome, Ethan. She opened the door. She got out. She walked back to the gray sedan. She got in, and she started the engine, and she sat there for a full 10 seconds with her hands on the wheel, not moving, before she backed out of the space and drove away. He sat in the truck a long time after she was gone. Brandon Vance stepped down on Monday. It was in the business section first, then the front page by evening. The portfolio group stock had opened down another 7% and closed down 14%. 2 board members had resigned the day before. A third resigned Monday afternoon. The statement Brandon's PR firm released was 3 paragraphs long and used the phrase focus on personal matters, and the phrase spend more time with family, and the phrase grateful for the opportunity, and was dissected on 6 podcasts inside of 12 hours, and became, in certain circles on the internet, a joke. The way statements like that always become jokes. The way jokes are the way a culture admits without admitting that it has decided something. The hotel in Aspen produced the sealed complaint from 18 months earlier after a judge ordered them to. The woman who had filed it was named on Wednesday by her own choice in an interview she had fought her lawyers to give. She was a housekeeper. She was 23. She had held on for a year and a half without being able to tell her mother why she'd lost her job. Because the settlement had bought her silence, and the settlement, the judge ruled, had been obtained through coercion and was void. The barista from the Christmas party spoke on Thursday. The woman from the Aspen Hotel spoke on Friday. By the following Monday, there were 11 women. Brandon Vance's lawyers stopped giving interviews. The investigations, plural now, moved into the phase where lawyers stopped giving interviews. Daniel Okafor called Ethan on the Tuesday of the second week. The countersuit's filed. Okay. Discovery opens in 30 days. They're going to try to settle before then. They're going to offer you a number. I don't want a number. Ethan, I don't want his money. Ethan, listen to me. The number is not for you. Some of it is. Most of it isn't. The structure we're asking for funds a legal defense pool for people who get on the wrong side of men like Brandon Vance and don't have a Pemberton in their phone. You are the first name on the letterhead, not the only name. There are going to be a lot of names on that letterhead over the next 20 years. Take the number, Ethan. Take the number and let it do some work. He thought about it overnight. He called Daniel in the morning. Take the number. I will. One thing. Yeah. The warehouse. Ethan, they fired you. I know they fired me. I want my job back anyway. And I want Derek's back pay for the 2 days corporate made him wait before they told him what they were doing. And I want a written apology from the regional, not to me, to Derek. All right. And the gas station. Not going to happen, Ethan. Why not? Because Dee put in her 2 weeks this morning. She's not going back to that station. She took another job. A better one. One of my associates made a call. That's handled. Okay. Anything else? No. That's it. Ethan. Yeah. You did this. I stood up, Daniel. I didn't do this. Standing up is doing it. Most people don't stand up. That's the whole thing. That's the whole story right there. The rest of it is paperwork. Okay. Take the weekend off. I'm off every day now. Then take the weekend and enjoy it, smart guy. Daniel hung up. Ethan sat on the couch. Mia was at the kitchen table drawing a picture of, as best he could tell, a dog wearing a hat with a sun over its head that had a face on it. The face on the sun was smiling. Bug. Yeah. You want to go to the park this weekend? She looked up. The real park? With the slide? Yeah, the real one. With the duck pond? With the duck pond, Mia. Yes. Okay. Daddy. Yeah. Are you sad? He thought about it. No, he said. Not today. Okay. She went back to her dog. He sat on the couch and watched her draw, and outside the window the afternoon sun was doing the thing it did in late October, coming in low and warm at a bad angle, lighting up the dust on the glass in a way that made the whole apartment look, for a minute, like a place where somebody could live a whole long life. He didn't know yet what he was going to say to Chloe Sinclair when she came back to him in 6 weeks. He didn't know yet whether he was the kind of man who could run a program. He didn't know yet whether the countersuit would settle at the number Daniel wanted, or a number smaller, or whether the bill would pass on the first try or the third. He didn't know yet whether the woman at the schoolyard fence would ever look him in the eye again, or whether he wanted her to. He knew he was going to take his daughter to a park on Saturday. He knew she was going to ride the slide until her hands were cold. He knew he was going to stand at the fence and watch her, and that for the first time in a very long stretch of days, he was going to be a man at a fence watching his daughter play, and not a man bracing for something. That was enough for today. He got up off the couch and went to the kitchen and put his hand on the top of Mia's head, just for a second. And she didn't look up because she was busy drawing the hat on the dog, and the hat was the important part. Saturday came in cold and bright, the kind of October morning that feels like the world is clearing its throat after a long cough. Ethan put Mia in her blue coat, the one with the loose button he kept meaning to fix, and she ran ahead of him down the path toward the duck pond without looking back, because she was 6 and the world was a slide and a pond and nothing else. Chloe Sinclair was waiting on the bench by the water. She'd driven herself. No black car, no driver, no lawyer, just jeans and a gray jacket and 2 cups of coffee on the bench beside her, the second one balanced in a little cardboard holder because she hadn't known if he took cream. You came, she said. I said I would. People say a lot of things. Not me. No, not you. He sat. She handed him the coffee. Black. She'd guessed right. For a while, neither of them said anything. Mia had found a kid about her age by the pond, a boy with a red hat, and they had started the mysterious diplomatic process by which 6-year-olds become friends inside of 40 seconds. The boy had bread. Mia did not have bread. The boy was sharing. "The bill passed Tuesday," Chloe said. "I saw. I wasn't sure you were following. I follow some things. We start hiring in January. I know. Are you saying yes?" He looked at his daughter at the edge of the pond. She was throwing breadcrumbs with the grave concentration of a person in charge of something. A duck had decided she was its favorite human and was following her up and down the bank, and Mia was narrating the duck's behavior to the boy in the red hat, who was nodding seriously as if receiving official reports. "I've been thinking about what to say to you for 6 weeks. I know. I had a whole speech. Do I get to hear it?" "No." She smiled. It was a real one, the kind he'd only seen her give twice before, and he realized in that second that he had been counting. "Chloe." "Yes. I'm not the guy you think I am. I know exactly who you are. I lose my temper. I carry grudges longer than I should. I haven't forgiven the woman at the schoolyard fence. I don't know if I'm going to. I'm tired most of the time. I don't sleep well. I don't know how to be in rooms with people in expensive suits without feeling like I'm about to break something. I'm not polished, Chloe. I'm never going to be polished." "Good," she said. "Good? The workers you'd be training don't need polished. They need somebody who looks like them. Somebody who has worked a double and driven home and kissed a kid on the forehead and gotten up 4 hours later and done it again. Polished men have been running this kind of program since there was a kind of program to run, and it's why nobody trusts it. You are the first thing about this program that's going to make anybody believe in it. That's the job, Ethan. That's the only job." He looked at the pond. "I'll take it." "Yeah?" "Yeah." "Good. One thing. Name it." "I want to keep my apartment." She laughed, a short, surprised laugh. "Ethan, the salary." "I know what the salary is. Daniel told me. I want to keep the apartment. I want Mia to stay at the same school. I want Mrs. Alvarez to keep getting paid for Thursday mornings, even when I can afford daycare because I owe her, and because she'd be insulted if I stopped. I don't want a different life. I want this one, just less scared." "Less scared," she said. "Yeah, that I can do." And they watched Mia for a while. The duck had gotten bold. It was eating out of her hand. She was laughing, the big, ridiculous laugh that was her mother's, the laugh that had been sitting in Ethan's chest for 6 years like a song he didn't dare hum. "Daddy!" she yelled. "Daddy, look! He likes me. I see him, Bug. He's my friend. Good." She turned back to the duck, serious again, business to attend to. Chloe was watching her too, not like a stranger, not like a benefactor, like somebody who had earned, through a year of hard and strange choices, the right to watch. "She looks like you," she said. "She looks like her mom. She has your mouth." "Yeah, she does." "Only thing." A minute passed, then another. "Ethan." "Yeah." "I'm not going anywhere." "I figured. I wanted to say it." "Okay. And I'm not asking you for anything. I'm not a woman who needs a man to have a life. I have a life. It's a good one. I'm just saying I'm going to be around because of the work and because I want to be. And if someday that turns into something else, it turns into something else. And if it doesn't, it doesn't, and I am not keeping score." He looked at her. "Chloe." "Yes. I haven't wanted anything like that in 4 years." "I know. I don't know if I remember how." "Then don't. Today. Just sit on a bench." "Okay." They sat on the bench. Mia came running back a few minutes later, breathless, her cheeks red from the cold. She stopped in front of them and looked at Chloe very carefully, the way Mia looked at everything she hadn't decided about yet. "Hi." "Hi," Chloe said. "Who are you?" "I'm Chloe. I'm a friend of your dad's." "My dad doesn't have friends." "Mia." "He doesn't, Daddy. You say so." Chloe laughed. Ethan scrubbed his hand over his face. "He has one now," Chloe said. Mia considered this. Then, with the full authority of a 6-year-old who has just met a duck, she held out her hand, which had breadcrumbs on it, and said, "Okay, you want to feed him? He likes me." Chloe took the breadcrumbs. She stood up. She walked down to the water with Mia, and she fed the duck. And the duck, who had very particular opinions, accepted her, which in the economy of small girls and small ducks is the only verdict that matters. Ethan stayed on the bench. He watched them. His daughter. A woman who had, 6 weeks ago, been a stranger in an apron. A duck with no opinion on the news. He thought about all the things he had been afraid would be true, and weren't. He thought about the things he had been afraid would never come back, and had. He thought about a kitchen table, and a warehouse shift, and a man's hand on a waitress's wrist, and how close a life comes always to being a story somebody else writes about you, and how the only way through is to keep being the one writing it, even when you're tired, even when nobody is looking, even when the camera is on and the caption is wrong. Courage, he thought, wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a speech. It wasn't a stand at a microphone. It was a man in a bad shirt at 3 a.m, deciding, in one breath, that the cost of standing up was smaller than the cost of staying in his seat. Most days it was smaller. Most days, nobody would know. Some days the whole world knew, and most of the world got it wrong. And you had to live anyway, and you had to raise your kid anyway, and you had to show up at the park anyway, and trust that the handful of people who knew the truth were enough to build a next thing on. They were enough. Mia turned and waved at him from the water's edge, bread on her hands, cold on her cheeks, her mother's laugh still hanging in the air. He waved back. He drank his coffee. It had gone cold. He drank it anyway. It tasted fine.